Liam, first of all, an official welcome to Gateshead, of course, joining with Carl as part of his coaching staff. So, I mean, first things first, how pleased are you to be in the club and get things sorted now?
Yeah, really excited to what's to come. It's a new start for myself. Obviously, discussions over the last couple of days with Carl in terms of what he wanted from myself and what I could bring to the club. So yeah, really excited to get started. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned it in terms of recent discussions and with Carl, obviously as someone that you know previously, but I suppose how has it come around in terms of the opportunity being presented to you in recent days?
Yeah, it was an opportunity that it's a club that Carl loves. Over the last few years and keeping in contact with him and watching his progression as a player and as a coach. It was a brilliant opportunity for him to come back to a club that he enjoyed working at. So for me, it was another good opportunity for me in my coaching career now to showcase what I can do.
Yeah, and you mentioned in terms of your coaching career, of course, you haven't been too long since you retired from playing duties, probably similar to Carl in that sense a little bit as well, really. But how has your coaching career, I suppose, developed since that time?
Yeah, I think massively. I think in terms of my last 3 years of my playing career, I was a player coach, more of a mentor as well for the younger players coming through. Spent the last year really educating myself, going around and visiting different coaches around the country and some top coaches that I enjoyed working with in my playing career. So I've learnt a lot over the last year. Obviously I've been in at Newcastle working in the academy, which I've learnt a lot over the last 4 or 5 months being in there. But yeah, just can't wait to get started with first team football.
Yeah, you mentioned a little earlier in terms of how Carl speaks about the club having been here for so long. So I suppose he's sort of almost part of the club's DNA a little bit, really. But as you coming into the club as a new face, how much has he, I suppose, really told you about the club itself? And I suppose it's a very sort of defined style and identity that's been developing over the last few years while he's been here at that time as well.
Yeah, I think the DNA of the club kind of fits the way in terms of I like to coach. The team play some really good football. They like to pass the ball, work through the thirds. It's a massive part of my philosophy and probably Carl's philosophy. I think that was one of the reasons that Carl brought me in terms of my experience, probably as a player as much as a coach as well. I could bring a lot of new ideas into the club and just excited to get going and meet with the lads and get going, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned meeting with the boys, obviously a lot of new players for yourself to work with over the near future as well. But with the game here tonight in the FA Cup, how are you looking at that? And I suppose especially from your point of view as players who you might not have seen too much of before, what is your sort of thought process going into tonight, really? Yeah,
tonight's a case of just getting a feel for it, really. Carl's talked me through a lot. I've watched a lot of clips on him over the last few days now. So yeah, tonight's just a fresh start for him in terms of I just want to get to see how they play, how they move, any mistakes. But yeah, the club's, like I said, over the last couple of years has been building in the right direction. So it's a job to come into, like most jobs you usually come in at clubs that are struggling and need something new. I think it's the opposite here, where the club's in a really healthy place on and off the pitch, and it's a case of now just bringing a few more fresh ideas and get it going, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned it in terms of the opportunity itself there. I suppose from your point of view then, how much are you just looking forward to not only obviously watching the game tonight, but getting going with the players on the training pitch over the rest of this week starting as well?
Yeah, I think from the conversations that me and Carl had over the last few days, now it's over the line. It's time to work. Tonight's just a case of just analysing the game and seeing what what the lads are all about, really. Obviously, it's a new group for me. I know Carl's played with a few of them and knows the lads a lot better than I do at the minute. But for me, it's a case of just ready to get going and can't wait to get going, really.